In the movies and in the news, shareholders are often cast as the villain. Think of the greedy tycoon in a Wall Street boardroom, squeezing every last dollar out of the worker and the planet.
Let's get down to the business of sucking every loose penny out of Mr. and Mrs. Average Knucklehead.
It makes for good drama, but presents a warped picture of reality. We recently made a short about this topic and it was very controversial, so I wanted to expand on what I talked about in the short. The truth is, shareholders are the people who often fund humanity's greatest achievements. Let's look at a history of achievements funded by shareholders. Let's start all the way at the beginning, with the birth of the joint stock company. In 1602, the Dutch chartered the VOC, the Dutch East India Trading Company, and it was one of the first, if not the first, joint stock company. Citizens could buy shares, and the risk and profit was spread among many investors. The VOC shares traded on what would become the Amsterdam Stock Exchange. That structure, people pooling capital to fund long, risky voyages, made projects possible that no single merchant could have done himself. What did this enable? Massive overseas trade of spices, textiles from Asia to Europe. That trade didn't just enrich shareholders, it transformed economies, diets, consumption patterns, shipping, and navigation. Cities grew, shipping tech improved, maps were redrawn. While the VOC did have a dark side of colonial exploitation, from a financial and innovation perspective, it is a foundational example of how shareholders enable world-spanning businesses at scale. Now let us jump ahead in history to the railroad boom and industrial revolution. In the 19th century, many of the great railroads were built and funded by shareholders. The capital went to building bridges, railroad lines, buying locomotives. This improved the quality of life for everyone, reduced shipping costs, increased the availability of transportation, connected rural towns to major cities, and overall allowed markets to expand. The Industrial Revolution deeply depended on shareholder capital. Steel mills, coal mines, manufacturing plants all require massive upfront investments. Public companies allowed the pooling of capital from many people, spreading the risk. Now let's talk about utilities like electricity and your cell phone. A lot of these companies were funded by public investment that allowed them to build the electrical poles, the cell phone infrastructure like 5G towers. So the light in your house and the ability to use your cell phone across the world and receive data and phone calls and text messages, a lot of this very, very expensive infrastructure was funded through capital investment from shareholders. Yet another example is automobiles and aviation. Without massive public investment from individual shareholders, things like commercial airlines, airports, the manufacturing plants that build the airplanes, this was not possible. And the same goes for cars. If there was not massive infrastructure and production lines, the cost could never have come down. And these things would have been for the very, very few. They would have been luxury items. But because of massive shareholder investment, the spreading of risk among many people, almost everyone in America owns a car, and many take, planes to visit their family, to go on vacation. This is all made possible by public investment. And in the modern era, public companies have given us incredible technology and medicine. They've given us personal computers, cell phones that can go into your pocket, medicine breakthrough, vaccines, drugs that can cure disease. This is all incredible breakthroughs and improvements in the well-being of humanity being made possible by the investment of shareholders. Longer life expectancy, better living standards, information and communication more publicly available. Mobility is far, far better. People are able to travel across the entire country in a few hours. They're able to get to work within minutes, all made possible through massive investments in infrastructure. And all of these improvements and infrastructure build-outs and research and technology makes massive economic opportunities for everyday people. These companies provide millions of jobs across the world, if not billions of jobs across the world, in research labs, in manufacturing plants that create incredible economic opportunity and social mobility for people everywhere in the world. What's often missed about ownership in public companies is it isn't reserved for the elite. It's available to everyone with a brokerage account or a retirement plan or even just a few dollars to invest. In a way, this is the modern, more practical version of what communists talk about when they say seizing the means of production. Let's dive into that a bit more and compare how public ownership compares to the communist idea of seizing the means of production. Communism promised workers that they would control production, but in practice, ownership was centralized in the hands of the state. Factories, farms, and companies were run by bureaucrats, not by individuals with personal responsibility or financial stakes in their success. The result was often inefficiencies, shortages, and stagnation. Without competition, without profit motives, and without direct ownership, there was little to incentivize, to innovate, or to serve customer needs. Public company ownership, on the other hand, is a decentralized form of control. Instead of the centralized state running industries, millions of individual investors, shareholders, own pieces of companies. Everyone can participate. A school teacher with a 401k, a young worker putting $50 into an NFT, and a retiree relying on the dividends. Each share represents opportunity and responsibility, because investors benefit when companies grow, and they can lose money if the company fails. That risk-reward system drives accountability, discipline, and innovation. Let's talk about the Soviet Union and the United States in the 20th century. The Soviet Union poured enormous resources into state-led projects: steel production, quotas, centralized farming, space exploration. While they did have some early success, like Sputnik, the system eventually collapsed under inefficiency, corruption, and a lack of consumer goods. In contrast, shareholder-driven investment in the United States drove waves of progress. Cars, planes, consumer electronics, computers, and medicine, everything we just talked about, that raised the living standards across society. Next, let's talk about East Germany versus West Germany. The same people, the same society, but two economic systems. East Germany's centralized ownership produced scarcity and outdated technology, and limited choices, while West Germany's market system, fueled by shareholder capital and private enterprise, delivered prosperity and innovation that outpaced to the East. Last, let's talk about China's shift after 1978. For decades, China's state-owned industries stagnated, but after economic reforms opened the door to private ownership and market investment, growth exploded. Shareholder capital, foreign investment helped build the companies Alibaba, Tencent, BYD that today drives China's modern economy. The key difference is agency. When millions of people feel ownership, they can invest their savings and see the results in real businesses. Outcomes improve. Companies are pressured to perform because shareholders demand accountability. Innovations are rewarded. Inefficiencies are punished. In contrast, when ownership is centralized, decision-making is far removed from the people, leading to neglect, waste, and poor incentives. Charlie Munger said, "Show me the incentive and I will show you the outcome." In short, public company ownership is a more efficient, modern realization of seizing the means of production. It spreads ownership broadly, encourages responsibility, and creates a system where human ambition, innovation, and accountability work together to raise living standards for everyone. In the controversial short we posted, we got a comment saying, quote, "Kill all shareholders." The irony is, this person who wrote that probably has parents, grandparents, or loved ones with a 401k, a pension, or an IRA. That makes them shareholders too. Most people already are, even if they don't realize it. Rejecting ownership and wealth building through publicly traded companies doesn't hurt the rich. It cuts everyday people off from the most democratized system of wealth creation in history. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, please leave a like. And if you want to see more videos like this in the future, make sure to subscribe as well. Have a wonderful day.